My name is Diana Elliott, and I'm so happy you've joined us today for our webinar. I direct Urban's Apprenticeship Expansion and Modernization Fund project, or AEMF, and this focuses on expanding apprenticeships in tech occupations. So we'll go to the next slide. So on this webinar, we're going to cover what apprenticeships are and what Urban's project provides. We'll also cover background on our panelists' activities in tech apprenticeships. And then we'll have a panel discussion where we will talk about benefits, challenges, and why even during an economic recession, apprenticeship makes sense. And then finally, we'll conclude with an open Q&A where we can answer your questions that you might have about doing apprenticeships and doing tech apprenticeships. Next slide. So just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording and the slides will be shared after the webinar, and we welcome you to share them with your network as well. All participants are muted. So if you have a question for us that you'd like for us to address in the Q&A or even afterwards, just type your question or comments into the QA box at any time. Be sure to include your name and your organization. So today's presentation is how can tech apprenticeship programs help employers develop talent? Next slide. So before we jump into the content, just a little bit about what we do at Urban and who the Urban Institute is. So Urban is a nonprofit research organization based in Washington, D.C. And Urban believes that decisions are shaped by facts rather than ideology. And that we have the power to improve public policy and practice through such facts and evidence building, strengthen communities, and transform people's lives for the better. Our experts immerse themselves in communities and gather data to assess whether efforts across a range of social and economic policies and programs are effective. And so with our apprenticeship work, we have been building this evidence for decades, and we're at the point where we're beginning to do implementation. We've seen that the evidence is strong and it's persuasive for the case that apprenticeship really makes a transformative difference in people's lives. And so we, with this project and others, are helping others to lift up apprenticeship programs. Next slide. For those of you who are relatively new to registered apprenticeships, there are 5 components. The first is paid employment. Apprentices are typically employees of the organizations for whom they are working. There's related technical instruction, component number 2. And that means that training may happen in a classroom or online or in some other capacity. The third component is on-the-job learning with mentoring. And so that means that training also happens on the job with guidance. And the bulk of how apprentices are trained is on the job. Next is rewards for skills gains. What that means is that apprentices receive incremental pay increases, usually tied to milestones in their training and their productivity and contribution to the team. And then finally, national credentialing. And this comes in the form of a U.S. Department of Labor certificate and often a credential from an educational or training provider. Next slide. So as Urban has done more and more of this work in apprenticeship, we've learned that sometimes there are misconceptions and confusion about what apprenticeship is or is not. So for example, one of the misconceptions that we hear a great deal is that apprenticeships and internships are the same thing, or people get confused about what an apprenticeship is and how it's different from an internship. So quickly, apprenticeships are long-term and paid. Apprentices are typically treated as though they are full employees. In contrast, internships are typically short-term and often unpaid. Misconception number 2 is that apprenticeships are for the trades only. And while the trades do have the highest shares of apprenticeships, there have been tremendous growth in apprenticeships in the United States and other fields, including IT and tech. Misconception number 3, apprenticeships are only for young people, when in fact, apprenticeships can employ people of all ages, and it can be a valuable vehicle for career changes and for reskilling incumbent workers, which may be particularly pertinent in this economic environment. And misconception number 4, that apprenticeships cost too much and are too much effort. What we've seen in the research is that apprenticeships more than pay for themselves. Apprentices begin contributing to productive work very early in their engagement. And as an example of this, I recently interviewed a company that has employed youth apprentices for 3 years. They reported that a recent hire of an apprentice into a software engineer role, and this is an occupation that could cost tens of thousands of dollars to recruit for here in the United States, that this recruitment of this apprentice into this software engineer role made the apprenticeship a cost savings in the end. So they report that they've had higher retention among their existing employees who mentor apprentices, because these employees who act as mentors also find it to be a tremendously rewarding part of their job. Next slide. So our research in the US and internationally show that apprenticeships are a boon for employers. They offer access to new pools of talent, an ability to grow your workforce, reduce turnover, high levels of worker productivity, and over the long run, apprenticeships are a cost-effective strategy to employ. Next slide. So more about Urban's project, and the one that we're going to talk a little bit more about today. Urban Institute has this Apprenticeship Expansion and Modernization Fund Award, or AEMF. It's a 3-year contract with the US Department of Labor to sign over 1,700 registered apprentices into tech occupations. And this award includes offset money for employers. And on average, this is about $5,000 per apprentice. And we offer free technical assistance to help employers and others register these apprentices and get these programs off the ground. So for example, our team can provide free technical assistance to you or employers or others you know looking to start registered apprenticeship programs, ranging from answering your questions about registered apprenticeship to developing programs with you, to getting your paperwork officially registered with federal or state apprenticeship agencies. And we can walk you through all of those steps and help you set up a successful program. So I am extremely delighted to be joined by 2 panelists. Miriam Farnbauer is a program manager and works for the German Foreign Ministry and the German Consulate in Los Angeles in collaboration with DIAG USA to promote the Skills Initiative, an effort that promotes apprenticeship training based on the German dual education system in the United States. To help tackle the global skills shortage in the tech and manufacturing industry, Miriam leads a number of projects to enable dialogue and bring partners, educators, political and business associations at a local, regional, and national level together to create a sustainable pipeline of talent and solutions. She holds master's degrees in education and in intercultural communications. Andreas Brockmann is head of technical training and education, US. He previously worked in the engineering division at York Technical College in Rock Hill, South Carolina, as the department chair in industrial maintenance technology, mechatronic, and welding, and is an expert on mechatronics and its training. He has over 32 years experience in automation with a degree in mechanical engineering and an apprenticeship instructor certification from IHK, AHK, and he has the distinction of having started his career in a German apprenticeship program in 1983. So now I'm going to turn it over to Andreas and Miriam, who will now present about their work.
Okay, next slide. Thank you for introducing us, Diana. My name is Miriam, and I want to talk about the motivation for an apprenticeship program, why young people would decide to go for an apprenticeship program instead for just regular college education, and why companies would create their own apprenticeship program or take part in one. So when you start college as a young person, the thought of college debt can be very daunting. When you decide to be part of an apprenticeship program, you will have debt-free education. You will not have to worry about tuition because it is being paid for. Andreas will talk a little bit more about how this would look like in the MapSquare program. On top of not worrying about college debt, you also will earn money as you do the apprenticeship program. So you will start with a salary from day one. The salary increases as you gain qualifications and skills throughout the 2-year training. And then another reason why someone wants to do an apprenticeship program might be that they are just very hands-on. They want to do something practical. They rather want to work with tools in their hands instead of just sitting in a classroom or a lecture hall. So if this sounds appealing to you, then an apprenticeship is great because you have both. You will receive related technical instruction, most likely at a community college. It also can happen at a regional occupational center, it depends. But then you apply what you have learned in class to the job when you work in the company. So you unlock a professional career path with career advancement when you take part in an apprenticeship program. And you learn how to identify with the company and the occupation. So the great part about apprenticeship is that in order to compete in this ever-changing landscape of the 21st century technology, you need a training that is for a career and not just one specific job or one specific skill. And that's what's great about apprenticeship. You really start a career with an apprenticeship. For companies, what motivational factors are there for companies? Well, obviously, companies need highly competent and qualified employees that fulfill the tasks and duties needed in the company. And again, with an apprenticeship program, you make sure that you gain those highly competent workers because you train them in your company. You make sure they learn what they need to know for the work at your company, and you mentor them, you guide them, which leads to the next point that you will have a loyal employee through an apprenticeship program because you build this relationship. You guide the student from day one on, and through this relationship and a loyal employee, you ensure that you reduce your turnover costs and you increase employee retention. So you save job familiarization and make sure that your company is very productive. Next slide, please. Next, I want to talk about the 2 coordinated learning venues. I already talked about it a little bit earlier. So we have both. We have the related technical instruction at a college that is classroom-based learning. It's based on standards defined in the framework curriculum of the apprenticeship program, and it is aligned with the in-company training. The nice part about apprenticeship program with MapSquare is that it includes general subjects as well, such as, for example, public speaking. It depends on what the apprentice then chooses, and it makes sure that it is a very comprehensive training in general. So that happens 2 days during the week. The other 3 days of the week, the apprentice is with the company, receives in-company training, which is based on in-company training standards. And step by step, apprentices take over duties and tasks in the workplace, and in the process contribute to production. Very important to mention is that for the in-company training part, the mentorship component is very important. There's someone of your company that makes sure that the apprentice is taken care of, that they are doing fine, and that they are guided through the process. And with this, I'm gonna give over to Andreas from Festo.
All right. Thank you, Miriam, and welcome everybody. Yeah, we go to the next slide, please. I want to talk about a little bit our program, what we have now in Ohio already and in Florida, and where we going with this program. So we created the last 5 years this Map Square program with now over 20 partner companies and focus on the needs of the partner companies and the outcome of the students. And what makes this program really different is the high standards we have on this program. It don't come only with an associate degree or a certification. We have the ICAT certified program where our students get the IHK certification. We have NIMS credentials in every step through the program where the students can get up to 8 certificates from NIMS. We also are Department of Labor certified, so they get the completion certificate of the DOL out of this program, a FESTO certificate. And this is very important, not only for companies, but for our students also. The other thing is all our partner, like the DIAC Urban Institute, make this program really a successful program. Please, next slide. The benefits of apprenticeship program. I don't want to go in every step here, that takes us for a while, but I like to mention at least one benefit of each category. So the company's benefits: get high motivated employers with skills you need and like to stay with your company a long time. For the region to work together as a team in apprenticeship like Map Square is to build a workforce for the whole area. Yeah, don't see each other as competitor from company to company. Work together and build the area and the workforce you need. And then, of course, the students learn and earn and start a great career. Yeah, not only a job. Please, next slide. The requirements to start Map Square at your company in your region, it's pretty simple. We need partner companies for this. Yeah, the students by themselves, they need at least a high school diploma or GED. There will be full-time students at the college. They need to have reliable transportation to go to the college and their sponsor, the employer. Of course, they need to be on time at the classes, at the labs, and the 3 days they're working. Turn assignments in on time and study. This program is not easy. Like I mentioned before, the certificates on these programs are not easy to accomplish. Requirements for employer. Know the program, know your apprentice, will be here in the program 2 years. You have to be engaged with a mentor and time. Next slide, please. This is a little bit an a slide of the curriculum, the hand-on curriculum outline. I don't want to go too deep in details there, but only to let you know that out of the Mechatronics program, no matter what you do at your company, we have companies from the Space Coast in Florida what send satellites into space. We have automotive companies, we have chemical companies, we have packaging companies, all train the same people. And when you look on this slide on the technical curriculum, there's something probably you need in your company. And I promise there's probably a lot from them. Next slide, please. This is just a little overview so you know that Festo Didactic and our partner are here to help with every step and have the experience actually in technical education. Of it's the college, what is a partner in every region, or Festo by himself. We do technical training a long time, and with the Map Square program, implementing it, it is actually exactly what we do from 1969 on to today. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. Thank you. I give back to Diana.
Great. Thank you, Andreas. So at this point, I have a few overview questions to ask of our panelists, Miriam and Andreas. And you know, what we're interested in is kicking off a dialogue and a conversation. So I would urge anyone who has any questions about how to start in a tech apprenticeship program, maybe about, you know, Map Squared or about Festo Didactic or DIAG USA and the work that they're doing to bring together this training. And especially, you know, thinking about how we can lift this up regionally, for example, in Los Angeles. So if you have any questions, start asking them in the chat box. But I will kick things off right now with a couple of questions. So Miriam and Andreas, in your opinion, what's the best reason that employers should start registered apprenticeship programs?
Miriam, me, yeah. How we do this?
I'll let you go first.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about your workforce and what we have right now on unemployment, I mean, with the COVID crisis, everything changed a little bit, but nobody really found the workforce so far on the market. And an apprenticeship program is really the right way to change that. You know, you building the workforce you need. And through this 2-year program, well, a little bit over 2 years, 24 months, you really train every student in the direction your company needs to go. And you don't have that to any other program at normally colleges or anything else, where you really be engaged and make decision in the right way you want to do.
Yeah, with Andreas, I would also say you built your own workforce, and I don't need to elaborate more on this. Andreas said it, and I do think the building of a relationship, you build loyalty between you and the apprentice or then the future employee. And that's just a great thing, and you make sure that the needs of your company are met.
So related to that, what are some of the elements of success in a registered apprenticeship program, right? We heard a little bit about how, you know, the Map Squared program is structured. But I think, you know, it would be helpful to hear what, you know, for a prospective employer, what some of that infrastructure ideally would be in place to kind of have a successful program.
Yeah. I think very important for a successful program are all the partners, the coalition partners. For example, a consortium of employers, like a cluster of good employers who work on a program together, who can share their experiences, challenges, and how they overcome challenges. Then maybe also a partner as an intermediary who takes care of the paperwork with the Department of Labor when you register an apprenticeship. So I think partnership in an apprenticeship program is the most important part, or definitely an element for success.
Yeah, and I can totally agree with this too. I mean, if you do it alone, and some companies do it, but when you see the budget they have to do this program, it is definitely a better way to partner with Festo, for example. I mean, there's other programs out there. Not everybody will be a good partner for Map Square. But when you do it alone, for example, Mobea in Ohio, they have a $1.5 million budget every year now, where companies what are partners of Map Square have a much less budget on it. Yeah, we have equipment here in Ohio and also in Florida, for the program, what costs $1-2 million. If a company want to do this by themselves, there's a big investment for that. And this partnership definitely can help with this.
Yeah, so, I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that, because you both talked about partnership and building a coalition. And this is a recipe for success that's worked not just for Map Squared, but I've heard of this working for other areas too, where typically the competitors come together because they're better together and stronger together, building up this workforce. So can you tell me, but sometimes there's resistance to competitors coming together and working together. So can you tell me, when you encounter people who maybe don't see the value of collaborating, what are some of the arguments that you make to them about, coming together to produce something bigger and better than one individual employer?
Yeah, I mean, what the key really is, what you hear a lot is, I don't want to train for other companies. I want to train for myself. And if I train the people, they leave me, and I spend all the money on it. The numbers show different. Even with our apprenticeship program, the Map Square program, we have now over almost 50 students through the program. 2 of the students left the companies. And that is what is really about apprenticeship program. You building a workforce, this young adults, let's say it like that. I mean, we have older people in the program too, but they trust you. You invest in them. They don't leave you. And like I said, the outcome is something you don't get anywhere else. And if you get over that, you will see the success if you start a program like this.
Yeah. And also, one has to consider, if you build a program for the region, then the companies work together on what the region needs. Yeah.
That's really helpful. So there are challenges to starting these programs. We've all seen it, we've all experienced it. What are some of the challenges that employers have faced?
Well, when I talk to employers, they sometimes say, well, why would I pay someone a salary when they just started the training? Well, I mean, think about it. When you hire someone new, you pay them a full salary and you still have to train them on the job. With an apprentice, you train them according to the company's needs, and the salary that you pay them is less in the beginning. It will rise gradually once they gain more qualifications, and they contribute from day one, even though they might not know everything yet. They learn, and mostly, when they are young people, they're very innovative, very ambitious people. So it is definitely an investment in something that pays back later, and very, very early on, actually.
Yeah, one other challenge was always what companies had, especially by the beginning when we started this program, was to find the right students. Who are the right students and where they are actually, but over the years we implemented several different tools so that everybody today really, when you see the pool of students we have today in the program, they are much better and more successful than by the beginning.
So that's great. You both listed 2 different challenges that we hear a lot, right? The cost of the program seems prohibitively high to some employers when they hear about this, or they're worried about finding the right talent. And we know from our experience that these challenges can be addressed, they can be dealt with. Similarly, have you seen employers who have become champions for apprenticeship, who experienced some of these challenges in the first place? Do you want to elaborate on that? Do you have any examples of sort of employers who were really resistant and then have become kind of true believers to apprenticeship?
Yeah, I have a good example. It's a company called Vega. They're a process control company. They build units to measure liquids and powders and things like that. They build units for that. It took me almost a year to convince them into the MapSquare program. They started with one student 3 years ago. Now they have every year, every semester, they put 4 more into it. So you see already, and that was really a very small step first, to get them really in and convince them. But now they're a true believer, and there's a whole workforce they hire on the technical side comes now through the MapSquare program.
And I would like to add to this in general, before employers start an apprenticeship, I think there's often this misconception about apprenticeship. And they, as you said at the beginning, it's often mistaken with an internship, and people don't really know what it really means or what the benefits are. So I think our job is also to inform and to create awareness around apprenticeship, which is what we do with this webinar here, to let people know what it actually is and what they can benefit from.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we hope that too. I think the 3 of us all know that we work a lot on awareness and trying to champion apprenticeships as a really great solution for talent in the tech industry. So if you could each share one thing that you've learned along the way on this apprenticeship journey, share something about apprenticeship that would be helpful for employers to know when starting out.
I mean, what? Yeah.
You can share more than one thing. If you have lots of things, that's okay to share too.
No, like I said, I mean, don't sit back and think, your workforce problems get solved by themselves. They didn't get solved the last several years, and they will not be solved in the future. So, do something and reach out to us, or go out and find the right program for you and be a part of it. And if you have enough money in the pocket, start your own program. But you have to do something. If you just sit back, nothing will happen. Nothing will change.
Yeah, find your right partners. Do it with a partner. I think that is something that would definitely make it more easier for companies. And then also be prepared to make mistakes. The first cohort, challenges might come up, and better with the second cohort. Be open to a new training method and be open to learn.
Yeah. With this I like to add to that, Miriam, is if you implement a program like MapSquare, what is already running now for almost 5 years, 6 years, you don't have to do all the mistakes. Of course, if you want to do them, yes, there's a way out of it. We all did this, and MapSquare is not perfect either, but we learned a lot over the last year, and you can profit from that. Definitely, if you partner up with all of us, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I hear when I talk to employers is, but we have our way of hiring, and we know the colleges that we like to hire from, or we know, we like to do it this way, our HR posts posting. It's a radical mind shift to think about having to change almost your business operations in that way, right? So, and along those lines, have you found unexpected partners in other training groups, or, we talked a lot about collaboration and partnership, but have you found other partners helpful in helping to kind of create that mind shift for people that, the solution moving forward is probably building talent from within? So, what have you seen in your experience that kind of works with getting that narrative and that message out?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, if you sit back and don't do anything different, it stays the same way that it is right now, and to convince people, it takes sometimes a lot of time, a lot of talking, but we see really, if they change the culture, in their company, if they really start mentoring young people, you see a difference. And I know here on the call is somebody from GROP too. I visited that company before, and when you walk through this company, they have so many apprentices every year. You know, you see the change in that company. There was the future. You have a lot of young people, not the only people what retire the next 5 years. You know, you have a lot of young, really engaged people in your company. And when you walk through a company like this, you see they will not have a problem in the next 10, 20, 15 years, you know, or 50 years, you know. So that is what you have to think. You know, I got a call not several weeks ago from a company in New York. They've been complaining, you know, our workforce goes in a retirement the next 5 years. Everybody is gone. We need help. You know, it's a little bit too late. You know, you need an apprenticeship program is a long-term investment. You know, when you think about a 2-year program, you know, or 3 years, you get the workforce, the right one, in 3 years, not today. So you have to rethink a little bit differently.
And I think what's helpful for companies who want to start this or are unsure if they see success stories that will help them to take part in a program. And what we did, I know Festo does the same thing. DIAC brought over companies or interested community college representatives to Germany to show how apprenticeship is being done in Germany. We also did one trip last year together with or actually we were part of a trip of the German American Chamber of Commerce in Chicago. And so definitely, I mean, we don't take the German model and bring it here and do it the very same way. It has to be targeted and tailored to the US, but it is definitely helpful for the people who come over to Germany and see how it's being done and how it is successful to convince them that it's working out. It is a successful model. So I think success stories help for sure.
That's great. That's really helpful. I think one of the other things that works, at least in conversations, again, thinking about that regional perspective, is when people start to hear that their competitors are doing these kinds of programs, it gets people a little bit more interested, right? If you hear that other people in your same space are doing this, there's a certain amount of positive peer pressure, I think, that can result, getting people kind of interested and enticed to try an apprenticeship program. So everybody is talking about COVID-19. And the downturn, the economic downturn that is happening and that is on the horizon for, you know, who knows how long we're going to be experiencing a downturn. And some people might counter and say, apprenticeship, it's costly. I don't want to engage in a new program right now. I was on a webinar a few weeks ago where I heard a major employer who was going to start a program is now backing away from starting such a program. And I'm curious what advice you would each offer to an employer about, you know, do you start an apprenticeship program in an economic downturn?
I think definitely the right time right now. Well, like I said earlier, the apprenticeship program is a long-term investment. It's not for tomorrow. It's for in a year or 2 or 3, you know, and you want to grow back with your company. Yes, we all facing a difficult time right now, but we're looking also in the future, and we have now a 5-10 year plan or something like that. And that is where apprentice, again, workforce is needed. And that is why you want to start right now. You don't want to wait that your company comes back to normal or even exceed, you know, then it's too late again. You know, you have really to think a little bit more ahead of yourself with the apprenticeship program.
I think you just have to prepare for the future. It's build a workforce, you build your own workforce for the future, and you have to prepare for it now, so you can use it later on. And once you know the crisis is over, you will still hire other people as well. So why not do it with an apprenticeship program where you train specifically to the company's needs, and you have a lower salary to begin with. So it has many benefits, really, an apprenticeship program, and in the end, it's a big return on investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I'm struck by how often the dialogue in companies during times like this is about cutting their payroll, when in fact, it might not be the best long-term strategy for the company. And for, as you said, Andreas, like 5 years from now, what does that look like, right? So it does seem like right now is a really good time, and there are a lot of people looking for opportunities. So along those lines, I think let's switch and see if we have some audience questions. Okay. First question is from, let's see, Christina Masali from Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber. And her question is there any collaboration with the Apprenti Tech Apprenticeship Program with this initiative? Would love to scale the offering. It would be great to combine the two. So right now there is no partnership with Apprenti, so to speak, but at least with the AEMF program, what we do is we help people to launch their programs, and they can pull from the recruiting or the credentialing stream that fits their needs best. So if for a company that's Apprenti, then we'd be happy to have a conversation with them. We are you know, open to providing the technical assistance and the employer help that that employer needs. I don't think that pertains to Miriam or
Actually,
Andreas's project.
Yeah, actually, I talked to the Chamber of Cincinnati before about their Apprenti program. You know, I mean, it's right in front of our door, you know, but yeah, there was not a collaboration or working really close together so far.
Great. Okay, next question is, what does assessment parallels employer practices mean? So this was, I think, related to the rewards for skill gains, aligning business practices with the promotion of sort of the increase in pay scale for apprentices. So what that pay scale reward for skill gains means is that when you register a program with the U.S. Department of Labor or with a state agency, you decide the appropriate pay scale and incremental pay increases that registered apprenticeship will receive, that registered apprentice will receive in that occupation. And typically, for example, with a competency-based apprenticeship, it's tied to the acquisition and demonstration of competencies on the job, which makes sense, right? I think any of us might be able to say that we have gotten incremental pay increases as our skills have grown on the job as well. So that's really what that means. Next question, and this came up during Andreas's presentation, so I'll direct it to Andreas, is do the apprentices work a 40-hour work week while in the program? And this was asked by Carol Gomez, and she is from, actually no organization listed.
All right, they actually don't. They work 24 hours normally. The program is set up that the students go one day in practical training at a lab, normally at Festo or at a college. They get their classwork in the next day. You know, they have general education classes, of course, too, like English and math. And then they have 3 days on the job training, you know, and it is set up like this. So 24 hours, that means the student don't have to be a full-time employer. So you can save still money on benefits or things like that if you want to. We see over the last years that companies actually going in that direction and pay the students on the 2 days where they are in the lab and at the college too, so and pay all the benefits. Yeah, so it is really on the company, but it's not necessary. to have them 40 hours. 24 hours is okay, no benefits, it's okay. But you have to really look on the market in your area too. More and more companies, like I said, in the Mason, Cincinnati, Ohio area, I see really the shift that the companies go to a 40-hour week, even the apprentice is only 3 days in the company.
Great. And I think the next question is really related to that. And it says, this is from Stephen Shibuya from
Electric Tech.
Okay, Electric Tech. It says for the education component listed, it's specified Thursday and Friday each week. Is this 2 8-hour days? Do the hours coincide with the company's hours?
So it answered, I think, the question already, and they don't have to be Thursday, Friday. What we do here in Ohio or in Florida right now too, is really look of the need of the companies. We try to take these 2 days where the students are not in the company, we try to put them together, like a Monday, Tuesday, or a Thursday, Friday. So it's much easier to track the time of the students at the companies when they're coming 3 days in a row. But there's other options too. If the students needs to come on Monday and Fridays to the college, that's possible too. There's also a lot of flexibility in the area where the program is.
Great. Another set of questions from Jesus Pagan, and it's, how are you dealing with remote learning? Or how are you dealing with related issues to remote learning? And relatedly, the next question is, what about access to equipment in social distancing times? How are you dealing with that? So I think it sounds like just generally, how is this operating now in social distancing?
I mean, it changed the last several weeks, I have to say a lot. But the nice thing is about, again, with Festo Didactic, we have a lot of online tools already, like the new FLX platform, Fluid Sim, Mindsight, you name it. We have a lot of different tools to do actually classes right now online. On the end, yes, we're going back next week, bringing actually students back in the lab. It is still a heavily, especially in the mechatronic world, heavily hand-on training. We cannot go completely remotely, but with the AHK certification too, this is a day of practice test, hand-on training test. So we cannot go completely away from that. But we have a lot of tools implemented in the last several weeks to be much more flexible on that and do much more online too.
That's great. Next question is from Ty Alini. Organization is, let's see if I can see here. Oops. Let's see, LACMTA, Principal Talent Development, a Specialist. How do you stay current on new technologies, given the advances in technology in terms of the direction our industries are moving?
It's a challenge. It's a big challenge for colleges, it is especially when you have to get money as a grants for equipment or things like that. With a partner like Festo Didactic, we develop teaching equipment. This is our job, and that is the advantage of this. And like I said before, we have almost $2 million on equipment in our labs, and it gets updated. I don't want to say on a regular basis, but if there's something new, we have it in our labs. It's really easy for us comparing to, let's say, other organizations.
Great. Another question from Ty Alimi is, are you currently working with the Los Angeles Trade Technical College? And then just describe this partnership.
Well, I mean, we are in discussion with, well, yes, we have a collaboration, DIAC has a collaboration with LA Trade Tech, but for the MEP Square program specifically that we are talking about right now, we are in conversation with them and try to see if we can develop a program with them. So MEP Square is not existing right now in California, but our goal is to get it out to California, and LA Trade Tech would be a great partner, and we're in the process of determining if this will happen or not.
Terrific. Those look like all of the sort of overall panel questions that we can answer right now. If anyone has anything else, please do use the chat box to ask additional questions. We have a little bit more time for Q&A, so I'm going to exercise my prerogative as moderator to ask an additional question of Miriam and Andreas. So, you know, in Germany, apprenticeships are much more widespread than in the US. So what lessons can US employers and policymakers take and apply from the German context, right? Miriam, you referenced that you can't just take the German model and make it work here. So what lessons can we learn and apply here in the US that would make the system a bit stronger?
Well, I think it's important to talk about the key elements of an apprenticeship. Just the idea of I invest into an apprentice is something that might be not as common here in America than it is in Germany, but again, it is an investment for your company. It's not only, it's great for the student, great for the apprentice, and great for the company. I think this is the biggest part that you can learn from the German system.
Yeah, the other point I have is flexibility. I mean, if we, and I worked for a college here before too, as you mentioned, if you think you can create a program today, you know, in a fast changing world we are in, and this program is good for 20 years, I can tell you, you are totally wrong. You know, we change every year the program a little bit. The AHK test, it's every year new. You know, it goes really with what industry really needs. And advisory boards are nice, but only when you put actually right away everything that comes out of it into your program. If you wait half a year or a year to implement things, it's already too late. There's already something new. You know, so flexible, and an apprenticeship program is flexible. We have meetings every month with the companies, you know, to see what their need is every month. And we implement this so fast as possible.
That's great. And we have a touch more time, so I'd like to leave on a positive note, which, you know, one of the things that has struck me in working in this space is that apprenticeship is a good news story. It's a positive story in a time when we're hearing a lot of bad news. But apprenticeships are really positive and really sort of feel-good stories in a lot of ways. So do you each have sort of a favorite kind of, you know, I don't want to say inspirational, but a favorite sort of example of a success story that makes you feel good about working in this space?
I mean, one success story is really from a student that got through our program, you know, and he works for Bildstein ThyssenKrupp. It's a German company that builds shock absorber for cars. This student comes out of the program and got the position to take care of the program at the company. Mm. You know, is in charge now of the whole apprenticeship initiative at that company out of our program. And I think this is a great success. You know, not only being a mechanic or a mechatronic guy now, no, you're in charge now of the whole program of mechatronics at the company. So I think that's great. Feels good.
And I remember a student from LHA Tech coming up to me once we supported them with tools for the apprenticeship program, and so they didn't have to take care and buy it themselves. And then he just came up and said, "Hey, I remember that, and it helped me so much, and it really had an impact." And just those moments when you interact with the apprentices, those are great.
Yep, agree. Those are my favorite moments too. When you meet the apprentice or you hear their success story. One of my favorite examples was a film that some folks had produced about people in Kentucky. And they had this one young woman that they interviewed who said, "I'm 21, I own a car, I just bought my first house, and I'm an apprentice and I love my job." And it's a terrific story, and I think it makes us all feel good. And what I'm also struck by is that it makes your existing employees in a place of employment feel good too. There's something about having, you know, a breath of fresh air from, you know, younger, sort of energetic workers, workers who are eager to learn, and also being able to share the knowledge that you've had. You know, I think one of the things that we've heard over and over in interviews is how good it makes people feel to mentor others at the workplace. And that helps retain your existing employees as well.
Yeah. And also, and I would like to, apprenticeship is really, it's the start of a career. You are not trained for one specific job. It's a profession associated with many skills, and you know, you will advance within the company after your apprenticeship as well. So it's really the start of a career, and I think that's what's so great about it.
Yeah. The other thing is what we see with the hiring process. I mean, a lot of companies hire out of their workforce already what they have. They have maybe a machine operator who does a great job, you know, and they're giving them the opportunity to go in this apprenticeship program. And the first thing is what somebody like this said, I cannot afford to go to college, you know, and this is sponsored by the company. So you really give something to people you know maybe already in your company. Yeah.
That's great. So that's all that I have in terms of questions. Miriam, Andreas, any other parting words of wisdom you'd like to share?
No, I think the one thing is, I mean, if anybody have questions later on also, please reach out. Don't hesitate to give us a call, send us an email.
Yeah, we're more than happy to answer questions, and I want to thank the audience for joining us and taking the time and listening to what we had to say.
Excellent. Yes, likewise. Thank you very much to Andreas and to Miriam for sharing their time and expertise. And thank you all so much for joining us on the line. We're really looking forward to potentially working with you in the future. So reach out to us. Let us know how we can be helpful, if we can answer your questions, or if we can potentially partner with you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.